It is the late autumn of the hallowed year 1481 DR. A Varunian trading carrack, having successfully completed an altogether inadvisable trek across the trackless sea, barely avoiding a whole ecology of sea monsters, and much more dangerously so, trading taxes, arrived to port. It had sailed to the realm of Lacania, found to the north of the mystical Mestican Peninsula. On board travelled 3 agents of discord: Valiaris Adernor, an elven wizard with a heavy moral burden on his shoulders; Vina, a half-elven adherent to a dangerously fickle faith; and Radoth Axtria, a dragonborn druid compelled far away from his own home by lifelong visions. The 3 had battled alongside each other for months, and somewhat stumbled into the tropes, eventually designating them as adventurers, having saved the hamlet Fandulin from its incursion of vicious drow wizards, haughty green dragons, and expectably mercenary hoodlums. Vina, native to the queendom of Lacania, was eventually summoned by her estranged father, Duke Reuben von Kesslen. The Duke, patriarch of the Kesslen house underneath the royal family of Lacania, spoke of dire times ahead and played the heartstrings of family and duty, perhaps forgetting that Vina was his bastard daughter, who quite frankly didn't nurture many warm feelings for the fact that he turned his back on her mother. In any case, Vina reluctantly heeded the call. With her compatriots in tow, they reached port and met with 2 Kesslen loyalists: Rosmagin Hartley, a dutiful and determined soldier and marksman who knew Vina from their childhood days, and Fyodor Mortagian, a ranger and former member of the Lacanian Inquisition, a fierce and dogmatic organization combating nefarious and corrupting powers of witchcraft and unsanctioned magic. Problems arrived the moment they landed. A night hag, a very dislikable spirit of the night, had dared close to the castle itself. While its defeat was brisk, the spirit, swearing vengeance and making a prompt exit stage, left. It struck the locals that nefarious powers in Lacania had been emboldened to a disconcerting degree. The Duke's summary explanation only painted things in a more dire palette. A plague swept the land, withering crops across the nation, threatening to dip the entire queendom into a famine. What worse, winter was giving the nation bedroom eyes. Lacania was notorious for its chilly temperatures, which meant that catastrophe loomed. What worse, Queen Catherine was ill by a mysterious affliction of magical nature. The Inquisition, using this opportune crisis, was on the warpath as a result, using the ensuing uncertainty to rile up an atmosphere of fear and anxiety. And all the while, the great houses of Lacania were eyeing each other up, preparing for what could undoubtedly be a civil war for power when the Queen eventually died. The group of adventurers were given a mission: travel to the city of Kremdal, posing as adventurers, and investigate the local outbreak of wheat plague decimating the local farms. There, they would wait until Oren, the spy master at the employ of Duke Reuben, would have one of his contacts reach out to them with new assignments. As they waited, they busied themselves dealing with Kremdal's problems. In between a petty baron more concerned about his reputation than the plight of his townsfolk, the mysterious decision by the wood elves to prevent hunting in the nearby forests, and the haunting of an old, abandoned Inquisition asylum, this adventuring group's legacy began to take shape. Ridding the town for its plights, one quest at a time, tragedy struck when they eventually began to delve into the mysteries of the witch covens allegedly orchestrating the grain plague in the area. Valiaris, a man of pragmatism, uncurled his magical might during some of the most dangerous encounters the adventuring party faced, and among these eldritch spells, his fireballs eventually attracted the attention of the mysterious Fae, creatures of the mighty Lacanian forests. During one pivotal altercation against another night hag, having been connected to the covens responsible for the grain plague, a vicious group of dryads descended upon the party, and the summary panicked argument resulted in catastrophe. Laid under a magical charm, the adventurers were powerless as the dryad marched Valiaris off to the deep woods, the man to stand trial before the powers that ruled the forest. There he was judged by the Lady of the Woods, an ancient being holding court for all sorts of magical forest creatures, gave him an ultimatum he could not accept. Instead, Valiaris valiantly offered his mortal body as nourishment to the forest, while he bargained for the captured soul of an old deceased compatriot through negotiation with the first one, the god of death that did its divine work in Lacania. He was successful. releasing his friend from what would have been an eternal prison of madness, allowing the soul of his compatriot to be accepted into the afterlife and court of his mistaken god, Kotal. Valiaris himself, recognized for his selflessness as his last action on mortal soil, found that the agreement to give his soul to the first one interceded by none other than the Queen of Arnyador, Angarad. To the chagrin of the first one's emissary, she spelled Valiaris' soul to her domain. Thus ended the tale of Valiaris. Back in Lacania, the adventuring party reeled from the news of Valiaris' death. News provided by the mystic, Eder Alterman, who had conversed with Adrenor during his last time. Alterman, a man of impressive powers himself, joined with the adventuring group as he reasoned the biggest chance of seeing his own aspiration come to fruition was with this absurd crew. Upon their return to Kremdal, vanquishing the last night hag who posed as Orin's contact, they can finally concentrate on the assignment for the queendom. With the queen in dire straits, the two crown princesses, Princess Emily and Princess Katrine, were potential targets for ambitious plots against the throne. The Kesslans, ever faithful adherents to the queendom, have decided to spell them out of danger before any such nefarious plans could be set in motion. And the adventuring group, already demonstrating a remarkable ability to solve problems in the most imaginative ways, were the perfect agents for this outrageous plan. They travelled to the city of Hammerholm in the Ukane Duchy, a melting pot of the nobility where the Dance of Duchies was happening, an event that only occurred during times of high political tension or joyous occasion. All the movers and shakers of Lacanian high society met and exchanged acerbic pleasantries. With Eder arriving as nobility, posing as a baron, and Vina as his courtesan, Fyodor arranging a sewer escape, Rosmarji and Hartley sidling into the guard garrison, and Radoth manning the castle ramparts in his animal shapes, a truly magnificently absurd plan was set in motion. A plan that against all odds even worked. With the princesses compliant to the notion that they were in danger, the group managed to spell them out of the social gathering on the back of giant owl wings, and with the directions leading them north, our larger group managed to weather through the many perils that stood in their way. They descended upon the small northern town of Lushvik, a once prolific harbour hub that had fallen into secession. There, they met with Duke Reuben, commemorating our group of travellers for their efforts. However, this was but the first step of a larger plan. With the Queen's summary death to the nefarious affliction created by whatever insidious powers aligned against the stability of the lands, the work of our compatriots had only begun. Volunteered to become keep commanders and charged with rebuilding the Lushvik keep, now named Raven's Rest, the party members must fortify their position and safekeep the princesses as the thundering drums of war thrum in the south. The Duke rides south, rallying his bannermen to defend the royal family's claim to the throne. In the meantime, while Vina managed to mend some of the wounds with her familial bonds to the Duke, the strain of the horrific events she had suffered through up until now compelled her to stay away from active adventuring, for the time being taking a more administrative position in the keep. With the heavy mantle weighing down on their shoulders, each member of our adventurous troop faced challenges and began preparing. Radoth, now the only Farunian and foreigner in the group, found his visions intensifying, particularly his eldritch connection to the witch Emma Wunderblot. Emma, a mysterious figure who has been keeping an eye on the troop's tomfoolery since they arrived, sees him in her dreams as he sees her, and is equally puzzled about this connection across land and time. The Dragonborn has his own plans, however, pledging fealty to the new royal heirs who now have no parents. Radoth has taken it on his shoulders to see nature take as much prolific role alongside the queendom in the shape of things to come. He attempts to gather many disparate groups that make home in the woods, in hope of creating the bulwark needed against the coming tide of darkness. Particularly, he has convinced a group of kobolds to follow his lead, founding a new deep forest hamlet, Kajisito, the Scale Home. And, with the budding attention of the Raven Lord, one of the oldest deities of Lacania, interesting times for the Scaled Fellow are ahead. Rosmarjin Hartley, or Doe as she was affectionately dubbed, equally saw how the nation she had pledged her life to come part in its seams. With the shock of learning that the Queen and her consort had perished to foul magics, and the knowledge that the Inquisition was prepared to enact a new terrifying purge, a fierce witch hunt that once before almost brought Lacania to its knees. She has solemnly taken it onto her shoulders to train the men and women assigned under the keep's command for the fights to come. Fyodor Mortegin felt a cold breath of the Inquisition against his neck, ostracized from the organization that once called upon him for particularly difficult and often very bloody assignments. He, if anyone, knew what the potential terror they could bring once they had seen fit to make you an adversary. His curse of lycanthropy has allowed him to appreciate the side of the heretics and mutants he once hunted himself. However, with his new understanding of the world and his undying love for his home, the Morkainen Duchy, he has begun making arrangements with kinsfolk that tour the forests surrounding Lushvik. More curiously, Crown Princess Emily has found sympathy, and more disconcerting, curiosity for this affliction, the two finding some commonalities, and perhaps even more. In either case, the stern-faced hunter was readying himself for a fight against what once had been old comrades, a fight that quite likely only would end when someone wound up very dead. Ether's own plans began to take shape, with the Inquisition using the fear of the Queen's death to their advantage, riling up spirit of persecution against all spellweavers and arcanists. The man began to summon a host of friends and family to the, all things considered, safer north. But with his summons came a plea by the gypsy witches that had fostered him in trying times. With a terrifying future in store for all of the magical arts, it was decided by secretive forces that it was time to strike back at those who hunted them and ostracized them. He has been assigned to reclaim an ancient artifact, the Crown of Wifkin, a powerful relic designed to empower those who wielded it, but at a dire price. Ether, frankly more concerned about the safety of his friends and family, could understand that remaining idle in the dark times ahead would be anathema, but at the same time, the thought of unearthing such a dangerous item didn't sit well with him. With one of his closest compatriots, Orin, now at his side, he faced a dilemma of proportion. He was forced to decide whether to stay and fight a fight he might not win, or seek newer, more promising pastures away from a land about to burn. Oris the Sanguinar, or Ori, was as the newest addition to the party of adventurers thrust into a world of politics, warfare and unrest that she hadn't asked for. As one of the compatriots brought to the north by Ether, her mystical heritage makes her a prime target for the insidious Inquisition. While she is still coming to terms with the fact that she inadvertently wound up in the center of a coming storm, this was a formidable lady who would not step down in the face of evil. A being of pleasures and delights, she might be one of the few bright lights in the coming darkness. And with the blood of a god present in her veins, it lends credence to the fact that her role in the theater of danger is going to be a rather remarkable one. Now, with danger staring its uncomely face directly at these five adventuring souls, they face a fight in which an entire queendom hangs in the balance. Will they survive the coming fires, or will they be guzzled up in the last fires of a doomed nation? Find out in this exciting Dungeons & Dragons homebrew adventure, When Ravens Descend.